maybe an asterisk by it, whatever. But okay, so that's what I got to say on it. Let's talk about other things that are more important.
Yeah, well, let's talk about each and every one of the candidates. You only have another 10, 12 minutes, so we want to make sure we make them count.
Okay.
Well, first of all, break down Larry Walker first. We already started. We'll continue with him first.
I think what's great about Larry Walker is that he went to an expansion team and helped put the expansion team on the map.
Mm-hmm.
He was a consistent hitter with the Expos, and then we all know what happened with the Expos when they went out of business, essentially.
Right.
And he found a home in Colorado, and he became, with Todd Helton, he became, the favorite sons. There's not much you can say negatively about Larry Walker's career. He's consistent. Could play, I believe it was right field and first base.
Mm-hmm.
Hit for average. He may have had a batting title in there somewhere, but I know that
he won 3 of them.
Amongst the,
he won
3? Okay, well, thank you. I didn't brush up on the stats enough.
You don't need to when they have him here.
David,
I know, he's stats worth. Right?
I'll embellish you a little bit. Do you want it? I'll give you a little bit of context just how good Larry Walker is, and I'm not going to, and I don't think this is controversial to say, Larry Walker was a better baseball player than Derek Jeter was, and here's why. Defensive metrics prior to his retirement were pre-defensive runs saved, so they didn't, accumulate how many runs a guy saved. There was a metric called outs above average. Larry Walker was over 100 outs above average on defense during his career. If you want to talk,
I believe every minute of that because he was a superb defensive player too.
7 Gold Gloves. 7 Gold Gloves.
Many Gold Gloves and just outstanding all-around player. If you wanted to show baseball players today that are playing maybe in high school or in college or whatnot how to play an all-around game, Larry Walker's the kind of guy you want to model your game after. Just a fantastic guy. I think Derek Jeter. I know if New York fans are listening to you, I'm going to piss them off. But okay, here we go. Derek Jeter is a great player. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. 19 years longevity, captain, New York Yankees, the lore. Games played, whatever. If he wasn't playing for the Yankees, he was playing for the Reds, San Diego Padres, maybe the Miami Marlins. He's not up first ballot Hall of Famer. I think it. Go ahead.
No, keep going because I want you to flesh this out. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I've talked about this with a few people who cover MILB here in Jacksonville. Derek Jeter gets in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not so sure that the mystique is as great if he's not wearing a Yankees hat and he's not wearing the C on his chest.
So where I'm a contrarian in that regard is this. Derek Jeter's numbers, regardless of where he plays, are Hall of Fame caliber. You also have to look at he was 6'4" playing shortstop. He's the first guy in the wake of Cal Ripken Jr. that you saw, and he wasn't the best of the shortstops in the 90s when you had A-Rod, Garcia Parra, and even Miguel Tejada if you want to throw him in there. But he was the one whose longevity and professionalism are kind of what pulled him. Again, he was not a good defender. Everybody knows this. Rob Nyer, who's a famous baseball writer, wrote that he's maybe one of the 2 worst defensive players in baseball history. But Derek Jeter did it the right way, and even if he did that playing for the San Diego Padres, it would be no hesitation that he's a Hall of Famer. The championships definitely elevated his vote total, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer with those numbers regardless of where he plays.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that with every hypothetical both you two guys are playing out, I don't care where he should have played or hypotheticals. He played in the largest media market in the country, and you got more votes. So I don't care about all this if he would have been in Cincinnati. If you're in a great baseball town, okay, like Cincinnati or Detroit or St. Louis, you're going to garner the votes as long as the numbers are good. I mean, everybody talks about his defensive. Well, let me finish.
I can't wait to battle you on that.
Oh, go ahead and bury me. I love when we bury each other on that.
No,
I
said battle you. I said battle you, not
bury.
bury.
Oh, battle you. Okay, that's okay.
Go ahead, finish it, Scott.
Battle me there, too. But you bring...
If that is the case, and you're judging it based on longevity, how good you are, what your stats are, and the market,
right?
why the hell isn't Don Mattingly in the Hall of Fame? Because he may have been the best defensive first baseman of his era.
Well,
injuries.
Injuries, but I'll also tell you the fact that he didn't play in any winning teams either.
Mm-hmm.
Playing on a team that obviously didn't make the postseason very much didn't help Don Mattingly's case. And I'll even take it a step further. If Don Mattingly ever does get into the Hall of Fame, I got a Hydra Stone statue at home that'll go up a lot in value. We had a memorabilia guy on earlier today. So I'm praying that. I once told Don Mattingly at a Marlins game that I hope you get in the Hall of Fame. I'll make money off you getting in there. And I told him right in his face, too. And he said...
If we wind up going to a Marlins game, Scott, you can bring all your memorabilia. I'll set you up a tent outside the park, and you can sell
No, I'm okay. That'll be for another story. I'll have my agent Les Wolff go ahead and negotiate for me. But getting back to my point, okay, and that's this. You know, Derek Jeter played in the number one media market in the country with the team with the most history. You know, it's a hypothetical whether he would have been a first ballot or not, but his defense, for as bad as you guys say it is, he made one of the most clutch defensive plays in the postseason on the big stage. Mm-hmm. So, and then the fact that his offensive numbers were pretty good as well. So, you know, I understand commentary, which is what we're here to do, formulate opinions and hypotheticals. But I'll take hypotheticals if you want. How would Derek Jeter have done with the Dodgers? You know, there's another major.
It would have been a movie.
Well, that too, but you think about it depends on where you're at.
And let's say this: Derek Jeter should have also just been voted in unanimously on the amount of beautiful celebrities that he did. And you could make a full his batting lineup full.
Yeah,
of
but let's not kid ourselves. Let's all kidding aside, okay. There, does he have to become a first ballot? If you post 3,000 hits and you're with one team for 20 years, then I don't care. I mean, Al Kaline, maybe was a first ballot Hall of Famer with the Tigers, the Detroit Tigers, and had 3,006 hits, I think it is.
3,007 hits, yeah.
Or 7, whatever. I mean, over 3,000. And you know what? He was in Detroit, got in on the first ballot. So depending on where you play, the level of success that you've done, you also take into consideration that the voting has changed a lot since then. So there's a lot of variables. So, but, I don't know. We'll leave that for the everybody to run wild on. Ted Simmons, I don't want to forget him. Do you think that he was a rightful induction?
Yeah, I believe he deserves to be there. I believe there are others who deserve to be there before him.
Okay. Because a lot of people are saying that Ted Simmons is long overdue.
No, he is long overdue. But I'm also thinking Mattingly deserves to be there. Dale Murphy deserves to be there.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean,
those guys have comparable careers.
Well, what we'll do is this. Your homework over the weekend, okay, or actually next week when we come on the baseball show, is you're going to come up with a list of guys that should be there, and what we'll do dedicate your entire segment to that. We'll do that. No, because we don't have time to do that now. We have Ted Simmons, who, by the way, was a victim of two small market teams. St. Louis is a great baseball town, but nearly not market-wise as big as it should be. And Milwaukee Brewers are certainly one of the smaller markets, if not the smallest market.
I admit that. The Brewers really did hurt him.
Right, so...
I can make an argument that tradition and the Cardinals helps him. I can make the same argument on the opposite that the Brewers sure as heck hurt his cause.
Yeah, it probably did, but if you're able to win with Milwaukee, then boy, I'll tell you, let's go ahead and pull out the gold medal. But, okay, but he's in nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And finally, Marvin Miller's in. We might as well call this the long overdue Hall of Fame when you consider that plus 2 of the 4. Jeter. Or 3, actually. I mean, I think Larry Walker, in my opinion, is long overdue.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you.
So is Ted Simmons, and so is Marvin Miller.
Until you told me, Scott, I didn't realize that it was his last year. I thought he had a couple of years left. So I'm really glad he got in.
Well, 22% of the vote. Mr. Stat, what did he actually get?
So he got 76.6, but he started... His first 2 years was in the 20s, and then there was his third and fourth year. He dipped down to 10 and 12%. So his rise is...
He kept on dipping, and then he jumped back up. I mean, it was an odd roller coaster that he rode.
Why I'm glad he got in, David, and I agree with you, and I think it's more interesting than Jeter, is it's kind of like the Rocky story where, like, this underdog kind of came out of nowhere, and he won our hearts. I mean, like, analytics, and that's something that I use a lot, and then if there's a piece that you could find on the SouthFloridaTribune.com that I authored about 3 months ago on why I think Larry Walker's a Hall of Famer, I made the case that analytics helped Larry Walker very much so. And a lot of that is what opened a lot of people's eyes to see, like, you know what? Like, man, this guy was a lot better than I thought. He just wasn't on the field enough.
Well, what also helped his case this year is you had a weak Hall of Fame class, which probably allowed a guy to gain 22% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
I was going to say that the class was a little bit weaker than normal. It's not a star-studded.
Exactly. You just made my point for me. Yeah, you're right. Well, so that means that Curt Schilling should get what?
You stole my thunder.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So that means that depending on how many haters Curt Schilling gets next year, you would think if there's perception and reality, he should get at least 80. But knowing him, he'll get in with 78% because a lot of people don't like him. But he don't care if he gets in next year. That'll be a very interesting election. We'll leave that for another day. But, you know, when you
I will say this real quick, Scott. If that is the case, by the way, I told you I believe that Curt Schilling, based on his career, should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Because of his place in history and the fact that he played on terrible teams and still won.
Yeah.
He was a dominant flamethrower who played on some really crappy teams. His political commentary screws him on the back end.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But he deserves to be there. I do believe, and it's not really a discussion, I do believe that Barry Bonds will have 70% of the vote next year.
Yeah, probably. I mean, but when you think about Schilling for a minute, the guy goes to the World Series with the Phillies but doesn't win it, but then you snap two large droughts. Well, one, the Arizona Diamondbacks popped their cherry and got one.
Season
okay.
4. Yeah.
Right.
And then the Boston Red Sox snapped a drought of, 86 years?
86 years.
So when
and one bad Jimmy Fallon movie after it. Favorite pitch.
Wait for that movie. I'll wait for that reference.
That's fantastic.
But
I love the fact that he's so young and he's so knowledgeable about that.
Scary thought, isn't it? Making those old geezers look stupid.
David, I'll give you one stat on why Curt Schilling's Hall of Fame candidacy is overdue. I'll give you two, actually, and I'll be brief with them. Strikeout to walk ratio. We want guys to strike out a lot more than they walk. Get the best examples of that, Greg Maddux, but, Chris Sale currently. Among pitchers with 3,000 innings, though, and there's only 36, I think the 136 men who have done this, and maybe 36. But again, the second best ratio of all time, strikeout to walk ratio, Curt Schilling. It's like 4.5 to 1. The only guy above him, Tommy Bond, pitched in the 1800s. Curt Schilling's win probability added in the postseason. How valuable was he in the playoffs? Second win probability added in the postseason all time. The only other man with more win probability added in the postseason, Mariano Rivera. You're right. His political views have been the reason that the close sign is on the Hall of Fame whenever it seems he's walking up there.
Yeah,
right.
You're right. But unfortunately, next year, his vote total did increase. Is that enough to penalize him to a point where now we'll let the guy in? And the only reason we're letting him in is because you have a weak class in the first place. Mm-hmm. So he's conceding the vote, considering what next year's group is really all about.
I'm also of the opinion, too, that somebody's going to say to him, you politicked, and I use this term correctly, you politicked enough to say, I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, because he did. He opened his mouth. And he got to 70%. Now somebody's going to take him aside and say, if you shut your mouth, you'll be in next year.
Oh, yeah. You bet.
Seriously, it's as simple as that. You keep your mouth shut, you're in.
Well, trust me, he will. We'll see if there's a nice side of Schilling that gets in next year. But I hate to tell you this guy probably will get in because I can't think of anybody who's worthy. The only intriguing question before we wrap up the program tonight is what other players that are returning get the biggest spike in the votes, and whether or not the writers are going to be so angry at Bonds and Clemens they're going to find a way to keep them out. Those will be some interesting questions.
Was Scott Rowland amongst the top 10?
He finished with 35% on his third ballot, which is the highest mark, and I'm going to have a piece coming out on the Tribune on why I believe he belongs, because he's one of the most underrated third basemen. The case for him is Ron Santo. The case for him is Ron Santo. But he's a Hall of Famer in my book.
I believe that Rowan's the guy that's going to make the greatest league next year.
Oh, no doubt about that. Are you kidding? If the guy had 35% this year and you got